Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we finally get to answer the question that's surely on everyone's minds here. Who is this no bullshit guy and what's his ancestry and DNA background? DNA tests have been all the rage this past year after all, a trend that was started in part by presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren all the way back in 2018. She of course embarrassed herself greatly all the way back in October of that year. Then Warren released her own DNA test results, hoping to confirm her self-proclaimed Native American status. But actually, she revealed quite the opposite. Liz's test exposed her as only being a small fraction Native, like 1/1000th, which is actually less Native than most average Americans here. This reveal ended up exposing Warren as a liar too, since she had been claiming Native American victimhood status for decades in order to get herself attention, extra privileges, and special treatment, which led to Warren becoming a lawyer, getting hired by Harvard, and even getting elected into the United States Senate, all based on this Native American lie. Now, there's a bit more to recap here before we get to my own DNA results, so just stay with me for a moment. I want to put this whole and complete story out there up front so we can all see and remember how we got here. After Warren's test mired her campaign through 2018 and 2019, well then we started to notice another similar phenomenon popping up online. Here on YouTube, other left-leaning SJW-influenced women started sharing their own DNA test results too, making videos about them which became trending topics as well, but not for the reasons the creators had hoped. Usually girls like this, like the first big video which came from a girl named Nia Hope, which I covered around March of last year. Well, back then, almost a year ago, Nia thought she was sharing just another DNA reaction type video. But come to find out, when the word spread about it, people realized her reactions were low-key, incredibly offensive, and what most left-wingers would consider totally racist in any other situation. Basically, Nia was shocked and almost started crying when she realized she wasn't African, but actually she was mostly of white and European descent. This might sound strange to the uninitiated, but I think most of us understand why by now. Being black or any other minority in current year, it gives you a certain amount of victim points and special extra credit. And in turn, with the anti-white racism at an all-time high out there, discovering you're part white in current year is usually virtually a death sentence. And that's why so many of these e-girls become horrified when they discover it. Next, we covered another DNA test girl named Brittany Ann, who outright hoped she would be part African, and then also she became very disappointed when she wasn't. And then Britt discovered she was mostly European too, and she became equally disappointed as well, somewhat upset and seemingly triggered too, which made her reaction pretty offensive too, just like with the last girl. And finally, just a few months ago, we covered a third DNA test girl named MJ, and while her story was a bit different, it still had some of the same kinds of themes. For MJ, she apparently thinks she's a half Asian, half German girl, but when she took her test and found out a good portion of her background was Mongolian, well that's when she started to lose her shit. And her, along with these other two DNA test girls on YouTube, they all made various reactions to my videos about them too, with varying levels of sincerity and success. Really, Nia was just the defensive one, and she ended up deleting her original video and trying to hide it. Then Brittany actually apologized and had the nicest, most acceptable change of heart. But the last girl, MJ, she really lost it, and she called me a racist and lied and made shit up about me for no reason, while trying to play the victim as well, even though really these girls are the ones who set these traps for themselves. It's pretty obvious if you take a DNA test like this publicly, you should really be careful with how you react to it. I would just recommend going in with an open mind and just accepting things as they play out. Worst thing you can do is do what these girls did and have these lofty expectations, because then when you inevitably get disappointed and things don't pan out, and you become disappointed for this reason or that, well, that's where these kinds of videos go tragically wrong. Being disappointed or upset you're a certain race or of a certain background can obviously be offensive to that group, but I guess these girls and their social justice warrior tendencies, they block them from realizing you can offend certain groups, usually the white ones and sometimes Asians as well. Now, with all that said, by the time we covered Elizabeth Warren's DNA test and the three girls on YouTube, well, that's when I proposed the idea to you guys that we should get my own DNA tested. Everyone on here seemed pretty excited and on board for that idea too, since not only did we reach our like goal on that video, but also I even crowdfunded a few bucks to help us pay for the test. Special thanks to everyone who helped and donated for that and supported this project. So now, without further ado, I've finally gotten my DNA test results and I'm ready to go over them live with you right now. So let's go ahead and take a look and check them out and jump right into it. Here's my web browser, and now I'm going to click onto my Ancestry.com account, and then there's my DNA test results on the front page. Boom. But wait a second. This can't be right. According to this page, it says I'm 86% English. Oh my God. I'm 86% English? English? I'm English? No! Oh Lord, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, help me. I'm English. Why? English. I'm sweating. Oh God, I'm gonna need a minute, guys. I'm gonna need a minute to let this sink in. I'm English. Oh my God, I'm English. Okay, you know what? This is going to be okay. Everything's fine. I'm fine. Everything's going to be okay. How are you? How are you doing? I guess I'll just have to learn to accept this now and not fight it. I'm going to have to embrace my English, Irish, and British heritage and even make it part of this show going forward like this. Oi, cheers! Hello all, welcome back to the bloody No Bullshit Show. We're a publicly funded operation paid for by the licensing fee you all generously gave the BBC. Ah, the Beeb, our loyal sponsors. God bless Auntie B and God save the Queen. Yeah, as for today's story, chaps, I have a rather intrepid case of tomfoolery to go over, being purported by that blimey orange man across the pond. Of course, we're talking about the good-for-nothing American President Donald J. Drumpf. This bloke said some very nefarious, rather inappropriate verbiage that I dare not repeat here. No, not a chance. That wouldn't be polite now, would it? But let me tell you what, I'm sure, I say, orange man bad, I know that for certainty. Now, before we move on, let me go ahead and apologize. I'm sorry for being so forward, I am, and I apologize for my white privilege as well. And also, you know, the sins of all world history are the white man's fault. I do offer my sincerest condolences, and as a newly anointed British person, I apologize on behalf of white people everywhere. Cheers, and thanks for understanding. You're a good chap, I say. Cheerio, Captain Crunch. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. On your way. Off you go. Adios. Au revoir. Chip chip chiroo. Okay, that's enough. That's about all I can do. And all kidding aside, I'm obviously not really turning British, nor am I embarrassed of my ancestors. Really, no one should be embarrassed of where they come from, at least in most situations. Like 99% of the time, you're just from a country you might not like, or one that's not cool or hip to be from in current year. Perhaps there's 1% of the time that you're actually the descendant of some very horrible people, like say 1940s Germans, or maybe your great-great-grandpa was Stalin or Pol Pot or something. But aside from those very small exceptions, most people should be fine with their heritage. Even if you are, say, German or Japanese or Italian and your ancestors happen to be on the wrong side of World War II. But that's really only a small part of your homeland's history, and you can hardly blame yourself or your family unless you do happen to have some concrete and specific evidence. But things can change drastically over generations too. And also, every ethnic group has had its issues throughout history. Everyone has skeletons in their closets, just like how everyone has positives in their past too. For example, I might be more embarrassed if I discovered I was from Britain recently. That whole bloody island has become an SJW shithole for the last decade or so. But that's not even close to when my ancestors were in the region. No, us Heatherleys left England hundreds of years ago, and we ventured to the Americas and settled the United States before it even became the United States. So yeah, there's a big distinction there, because instead of coming from a modern day soy boy SJW dominated Great Britain, I come from the region during a time when they were on top of the world, back when the sun never set on the English Empire. And its leader in military and people, they were successful settlers who spread across the globe, building and creating the modern Western world as we know it today. And as this map points out from my DNA results, by the 1700s, my family had begun to settle and spread throughout the lower Midwest and Virginia here, which also includes states like Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Missouri, and, of course, my own home state of Illinois. Then by the the 1900s, the Heatherlys had spread further across the United States, mostly advancing to other parts of the East Coast, the Midwest, and even some of our people hopped over to parts of Southern California, an area I even ended up in myself by 2009. And as this excerpt from Ancestry.com goes over, my family tends to be of the working class, starting off working on farms in the southern areas and then moving forward to a more urban life by the 1950s. This urban life section of my summary reads as follows. Life continued to change as people moved from farms to cities like Lexington, Louisville, Nashville, Indianapolis, and St. Louis. World Wars I and II sparked exoduses for factory jobs in northern cities like Chicago and Detroit, where workers faced housing discrimination and slurs that labeled them as hillbillies. In response, many Southerners banded together. Eventually, cities like Chicago offered businesses like barbecue restaurants and country music dance halls that catered to these new migrants. The growing population also found many jobs in the oil fields of East Texas, Oklahoma, and Los Angeles. Well, looky here. Looks like you can have some struggles and victimhood moments in your past, even if you're part of a white family. Now, I don't say that to virtue signal or beg for sympathy myself, but it does make you think here. The left-wingers are the ones who obsess about race and ancestry more, which is what inspired me to actually do this, because usually the left wants to time travel and use moments of racism and discrimination from their past to try and get them victim points in the present. For example, African Americans, of course, like to harp back to the slave trade, and Jews turn back to World War II, and so on. And even more modern immigrants, like Hispanic ones, they'll talk about their people struggling with colonialism and other stuff like that. But these same liberals who pretend that white people never had any issues or struggles, and we never suffered hard times or discrimination, well, that's clearly not the case, as this section of my bio just went over. In fact, in some ways, our people might have fought harder, and we had to stand up stronger, and we had to get our shit together and build these countries and nations and new places from the ground up, while also fighting off natives and warring with other contemporary groups as well. And as we just went over, there's also infighting within regions, like when my Midwest and Southern ancestors faced discrimination for being more humble hillbilly types trying to move on to factories and city work. In the end, that's about the gist of my family's story here, and it's also not too surprising to me either, nor upsetting. I had known I was of English descent, and I knew my family settled in the southern and Midwest area of America by the 1700s as well. I was already privy to most of this, so really, despite me playing it up and joking a bit earlier and acting like I was upset about being British, but in reality, that's all good to me. It's something one could even be proud of if you wanted to, as most can about most DNA, at least in some ways. Really, the only people who would get upset or mad or offended here are the ones going into this with preconceived notions and false assumptions. Yes, like with Elizabeth Warren and the 3 DNA test girls on YouTube, they failed because they had too many expectations and not enough self-awareness either. Now, hopefully you can see how a really good DNA test reveal video is done after watching all this. This one was open-minded, lighthearted, and devoid of anything offensive or bigoted or racist at all. What do you guys think? Were you surprised I turned out to be 86% English and North European? And what about the 14% of me that's part Irish? Should I start greeting people by saying top of the morning to ya? Maybe I should go out and buy some Lucky Charms. Those sound good. Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Thanks again for sponsoring and helping me make this DNA test video possible, and make sure you hit the like button to support this video and channel, and that way we can make more events like this happen. And then, until next time, we'll see y'all in the next video.